British broadcaster Piers Morgan apologized to tennis superstar Novak Djokovic during an interview on Tuesday.
Morgan had criticised the athlete in 2022 after he refused to get the COVID vaccine that was required to play in that year's Australian Open. Let's watch.
I'm going to start by making an apology, and it's for this, is I was very censorious about you over the COVID scandal that you got caught up in. I was actually quite censorious about a lot of people at the time, and I've since apologised to some people for being too tough on them, because once it became clear that if you had the vaccine it made no difference to whether you could then transmit the virus, clearly at that point for me it becomes a personal choice.
Morgan said that the issue felt personal to him because he knew several people who had suffered from COVID-19, but he admitted he was too censorious. Here was Djokovic's response.
Thank you so much. It was difficult times and state of emergency globally. I was never a proponent of anti-vax or pro-vax. I was always freedom of choice. So and that was misinterpreted. I was proclaimed to be one side or the other side or so forth. It's either black or white, and I said it doesn't need to be that way.
Back in 2022, Morgan had written on X, breaking COVID rule cheat, immigration form liar, and anti-vaxxer icon Novak Djokovic loses final appeal against deportation and will be thrown out of Australia without being able to compete in the Australian Open. Good.
The time Australia had a requirement that anyone entering the country had to be vaccinated or given a valid medical exemption. Djokovic got stopped at the airport for failing to produce evidence of either and was held in hotel detention. I do remember that. It was outrageous. I'm glad to see Piers Morgan apologizing. I like Piers Morgan a great deal. I like him more and more over time. I didn't like him at all maybe 10 or 15 years ago. I think his changing view on this reflects my own. I, at the same time, was never for vaccine mandates, but I was a little like, come on, you're not going to do it. But, as the science about how well it stops public spread changed, I think the calculus for how justified they were changed as well. But I know you feel differently.
Well, I do feel differently. I feel differently also because one of my closest friends is a former professional tennis player, and our main point of difference is she's a huge Djokovic fan, and I just don't like him as a player. I find him kind of irritating and a bit boring. But I am also much more pro-mandate, as you know, than you are. And I don't think actually, trying to set aside my general dislike of Djokovic, I don't think it is exculpatory that the evidence has developed and changed. The point is that Australia had decided that those were the rules at that time. They based that upon the scientific knowledge that they had at that time, and they said, okay, this is what the situation is. Djokovic then took it upon himself to not bother doing any of that, still trying to get into the country in contravention of the rules. The Australians, in my judgment, were right to do what they did and say, no, those are the rules for everyone. If you're a famous or wealthy or celebrated tennis player, you don't get an exemption from the rules on that basis. So that's just tough. Now, I mean, whatever Piers Morgan said about the matter or not, that's a slightly different point. I go back and forth on Piers Morgan. Sometimes I think he's very good. Other times I'm not a fan.
I think that especially for high performance athletes who are so careful about what they put in their bodies at all. I mean, they put themselves through or deprive themselves of things or give themselves the diets, the exercise regimens that are so different from the rest of us at the highest level.
Yep.
I mean, I talked to a friend of mine who runs like 100-mile races. That's his career. He runs 100-mile races. Can you imagine running 100 miles at once? Over and right. I remember talking to him about the COVID vaccine, and he was just like, he doesn't stick himself with needles of things in general, just because he's very in touch with his body and like what it needs is different than to operate at that level of peak physical.
I actually do take that point about elite athletes. My issue was if Djokovic felt that way, he simply should have withdrawn from the Australian Open and not played.
Fair enough. Well, that does it for us today on Rising Live. Thanks so much for tuning in, and look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way later today. And also be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Hills YouTube channel so that you never miss any content. And, of course, for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere that you can listen to podcasts. And Niall will be back here tomorrow with Amber. I will see you all next week.